A few years back, Henrik, when we first talked about this, I was just coming off the publication of my book, Not in His Image, which came out in November of 2006. Now, there's a lot about these so-called archons in that book, and in the 5 years since it was published, it seems like the word archon has really come into the vocabulary. Certainly, you find it in many places on the internet. It's being used widely. The word archon and the adjective, which would be archontic, and they're sometimes called the Arcontes. These are Greek words, and that's very. I find that a good development because, as far as I know, when I wrote Not in His Image, and you would second this observation, I believe, I was the first person to bring out specifically the Gnostic theory of the archons,
Yeah.
which is found in the Nag Hammadi writings and is a great warning for humanity to alert us to those forces that can alienate us from the earth and actually cause us to betray and abandon our own humanity. There's a tremendous message regarding the archons in the Gnostic writings. So while I wouldn't necessarily claim to have put that word into public discourse, it doesn't matter who put it in. I think I can claim that the Gnostic version of the archons that is currently becoming more and more discussed originated with my book in 2006. In fact, for those who are getting onto this topic for the first time here, I would recommend you go to metahistory.org and go to the site guide and go to Gnostic. And in the Archon files, you'll find that essay. Certainly, I think it came out a few years before my book. It's certainly a signature essay, a key essay that really puts on the map in clear terms, in explicit terms, and not complicated terms, what the Gnostic teachers of the mysteries told us about the danger of mind parasites and alien intrusion on this planet. So to just make a resume of that article, let me cite a few of the key points. The first point is that the Gnostics, who were shamans and seers in the ancient mystery schools, had capacities of paranormal observation. They were parapsychologists who could, well, first of all, they were shamans and seers who could look into other worlds, who could look beyond the physical dimension, and who could understand the eruptions of the supernatural into this world, if you will. Okay? At the same time, they were trained in noetic sciences, that is to say, in parapsychology, so that they were able to evaluate and assess the information that they received. This is really an important point. I'd like to stress this. Anybody and everybody can have psychic experiences, and most of us have had them at one time or another in our lives. We can have dreams, we can have lucid dreams, we can have visitations from different entities, we can have hostile encounters, UFO abductions, of course. But the trick is to be able to analyze and deconstruct and assess these experiences correctly so that we come out of these experiences with an understanding of the phenomenon based in human sanity, not just based in speculation and weirdness. The Gnostics were paragons of human sanity in that respect. And what they taught in the mystery schools about alien intrusion is essentially two things. They taught that among all the other dimensional and beings that we might encounter, psychic entities or other strains of humanity who might be floating through our world now and then, who live on other planetary systems, they admitted and allowed all this. But they taught that if there were one predatory species among these, we would have to know what it was. We would have to be able to identify it. Because one is all it takes,
That's right.
One is all it takes. It doesn't take 6 or 7 different alien hostile species attacking humanity. And all it takes is one. And so their point was very simple. They said, if we can identify this one, we're already in a position to defend ourselves. And they identified this one predatory species as the primary threat to humanity. They called them the Arcontes. And they had a whole story about the Arcontes. The first part of the information they gave was a mythological scenario, a background. They actually explained how the Arcontes originated and where they originated and what produced them. So I don't think that this is remarkable information coming from thousands of years ago. I mean, the Nag Hammadi documents are only about 1,600 years old, but the information contained in them, or I should say the sacred instructions in them, are much, much older, as you know. And so they gave us the background. We need the background. We need the backstory, as it were. And they explained that these Arcontes are not highly advanced entities from another civilization associated with another star in this galaxy, nor do they come from another galaxy. They come from this galaxy, according to the Gnostics' teaching, and they were produced in this galaxy before the solar system and the Earth, as we know it, came to be. So there's a long trajectory of cosmic development that the Gnostics were able to perceive in their heightened perception. That is the role of shamans. In every culture, the role of shamans is to remember the phylogenetic history of the race. That is to say, the race memory of our own genetic identity, to remember and recall our story. And shamans have always been storytellers and guardians of the story of their tribe. In any indigenous region where you find shamans, you'll find they have that role. Isn't that correct? That's what the Gnostics did write down at a certain point late in their history. They started to write these things down around 800 BC or so. In fact, they introduced literacy to the whole classical world around that time, around 800 or 900 BC. They were the ones who taught and propagated literacy and wrote the first books and established the first libraries. These were the Gnostikoi, or the Teleste of the mystery schools. They had behind them a fantastically long oral tradition. What is so important about understanding an oral tradition? Well, I can think of two things. First of all, we're coming back to the oral tradition right now. You and I are in the oral tradition at this moment, aren't we?
That's right.
We are talking here and people are listening to us, and they get something from listening to your voice and my voice, and something from the interaction, because we're alive now. And they sense there's something in the human body that senses the truth when someone speaks. There's a resonance, as it's called. And so the resonance of truth is preserved in oral teachings. And the integrity of a myth or story, whether it be that of the Australian Aborigines or the Apaches and Navajos of America, or even the ancient Greeks, the integrity of their mythical story depended upon people who embodied that story and who could carry it in their bodies and transmit it through their voices. And and that was the way this information, this sacred instruction I'm giving you now, was originally imparted. Then it came to be written down, and that was kind of like an emergency measure, actually, that the Gnostics took at the time when they decided that the education of humanity needed to go to another level, and that people needed to be taught the responsibility of reading and writing, and taught the responsibility of critical thought, which goes along with it. When you read something, if you don't have any critical thought, you're likely to just believe what you read.
Of course.
Unfortunately, right? Many people do.
Yeah.
But if I hand you a document I've written, or an anonymous document, or it has some famous name on it, and I say, here, Henrik, read this, I expect you to take the responsibility to apply your critical thought to what you're reading. You see?
That's right.
And that is exactly what the Gnostics wanted to do. They came out at a certain moment, as I say, it was about 1,000 years BC, and they said, humanity's coming to a tremendous turning point. And in order to guide them correctly, we must now give them the tools of reading and writing that everyone can have.